On yourself, that big guy.
Party too hard. All right, without further ado, the congressman's waiting. Congressman Matt Van Epps of the 7th Congressional District joins us on the Murphy Show hotline to talk about the events of this weekend, what to do to repair some of the potential security breaches that we saw over the course of the weekend, and what this does to attempt to repair the rift in Washington, D.C. and across the United States of America. Congressman, good afternoon. Welcome in, sir.
Hey, Matt. Great to be with you. Let me just start and just say I'm grateful that President Trump, his cabinet, my fellow lawmakers who were there in attendance, and everybody else at that dinner were unharmed except for our one brave Secret Service agent, who will fortunately make a full recovery. But so grateful for those men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line to protect our leaders. They neutralized the threat, but it underscores a few things. We need a secure ballroom. We've got to get that done. We need to dive into exactly what happened here. And the committees of jurisdiction, I know, are looking into potential hearings. Ultimately, the security worked and the threat was neutralized, but we've got to take a comprehensive look at this and where the security perimeter is, how someone can get weapons into a hotel and how that unfolded. And just like we would do in the Army, have a very comprehensive after-action review to understand what we can do better. So I'm eager to dive into those details and ensure that we learn from that.
Well, and Congressman, what I have said about it is that it appears to me that the security protocol and the security perimeter for what it was worked, that they were balancing allowing that hotel to continue to function as a hotel, as it would, and at the same time creating those security dynamics that would prevent someone from being able to enter that secure ballroom area. So for what it's worth, considering that no one was shot and or killed and no security personnel were harmed or permanently injured, and the assailant was taken down, it worked. My consideration is, and I'm sure you're thinking along these lines too, what about the next threat? If there's a next possibility, we can't allow the bad guys to learn from these types of things and take advantage of what they consider to be security loopholes in the system.
Absolutely agree with everything you just said, Matt. And when you look at it and where he got in at, he was still a pretty good distance away from getting into the room with the president and everyone else, and I agree that worked. But we've got to look at that. You were just talking about the other assassination attempts against Trump, and going back to July 24, obviously with Butler, September 24 at the golf club, back to June of 2016 while he was in Las Vegas, a campaign event in Dayton, Ohio. This president has seen just a whole lot of threats, and I agree. We need to learn from this one to get better before the next one. And I think, when we have the cabinet and the president, the vice president all in one location, the difference here, too, is that this president is seeing an increased number of threats and real attempts on his life. So we need the increased security protocols, and we need to make sure that we prevent anything possible from happening in the future. And one of those ways is getting this ballroom done. That's funded by private dollars. That will be a step in the right direction to host really important events in a very secure way.
Well, and our quote unquote friends on the political left were very quick to note, because it's pretty obvious that this is an example of why you would want a facility on a secure area like a ballroom on the White House property grounds so that you can host events there. And it was pretty obvious, and many people noted it over the weekend in the aftermath of this. And our quote-unquote friends on the left said, well, they wouldn't hold the White House Correspondents' Dinner there. Well, we could. There's nothing to say that the White House Correspondents Association could not work out an arrangement with the White House if they want the president to be there in order to hold it there as opposed to holding it in an unsecure environment.
Absolutely. And remember the Washington Hilton, that's where President Reagan got shot in 1981. Yes. In the same location, So yes. I agree with the DOJ's letter to the National Trust to drop the lawsuit against the ballroom. The White House is a historical building, and I want that preserved. Everyone wants that preserved. But the ballroom is a smart addition to a great location. And if you go back through history, too, the presidents have changed the White House as a functioning building over time. Back to Teddy Roosevelt, who built the West Wing in 1902. Howard Taft, in 1909, had a big remodeling that was done. FDR.
Hey, not to interrupt you, Matt. Taft had to put in new tubs. New tubs.
That's right.
But he's a big fella.
Yeah,
big fella.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
it's true.
You got to make it functional for the president.
That's right.
And so this is happening. President Nixon, he converted the swimming pool into the press briefing room, added the bowling alley.
That's right.
This is not an unprecedented thing. It's presidents seeing what that facility is and how they can improve it over time for our country, and that's exactly what President Trump is doing. And a secure ballroom is a great thing to have.
Well, and in all seriousness, I mean, it was not a partisan comment to make over the presidency of Barack Obama, during the presidency of Joe Biden, during the first presidency of Donald Trump, as the commentary went, and on back into time. It was not a controversial thing to say, hey, it would really be nice if we had a grander area so we didn't have to put up tents. And they're very nice tents, don't get me wrong. But, when you have a large state dinner, they have to put up tents to accommodate that number of people on the White House grounds. It's just something beneath the level of the presidency of the United States. And this has been widely discussed in Washington, D.C. And you and I know it, Matt. The only reason that this is controversial at all is because it's Donald Trump doing it.
It's Donald Trump. That's exactly right. And, I want to say one other thing, too, I think is really important here, Matt, is that, this increase in political violence that we've seen it's totally antithetical to the values of our nation. This is we need to reinstill a commitment to respectful political discourse. The left has been escalating this language ever since President Trump came off the escalator, and we've got to stop vilifying policy disagreements. I was on a flight last night and sat next to someone, and we made a decision, like, put the headphones down and engage in conversation. And it was clear to me that person and I did not agree. We weren't aligned politically, but we had a really nice conversation. And their dad was in the Army. My dad was in the Army. There were things that we could agree on. Clearly didn't agree on policy, but that's where it starts. And we should be having debates on the policy. And we will. The conservatives and Republicans, we're going to win those debates because we have really good policy. But those are the conversations we should be having, and moving away from this just completely un-American political discourse that's happening.
Our guest is Congressman Matt Van Epps for a few more moments, talking about the events over the weekend. One aspect to this that is not being very widely discussed on mainstream left-of-center media, Matt, the idea that the Secret Service is technically not getting paid. I know that they're using some certain loopholes and language within the big, beautiful bill in order to get them paid. Sadly, that was not the case for TSA agents and some other aspects of Homeland Security. But it's my understanding that were it for the Democrats and their blockade of the DHS funding, Secret Service would not be paid. And it's way past time that we get done with this and get beyond that and get that funding enacted.
Absolutely. The fact that Democrats have refused to fund DHS, which includes the Secret Service, for over 70 days now is absolutely appalling. I mean, you talk about, these are the men and women who literally threw their bodies in front of President Trump and the other elected officials on Saturday night. And now those same people are being asked to foot their own travel bills because of this shutdown. Because travel credit cards can't be processed during a funding lapse. Their protective details are being forced to pay out of pocket for their own travel expenses in some cases. That's unacceptable. The Department of Homeland Security is 10 agencies, to include the Secret Service, to include Border Patrol and ICE. Those 10 agencies work together to protect our homeland. Homeland Security was formed after 9/11 because we had these critical vulnerabilities and silos. Well, those 10 agencies work together. And when you don't fund those in part, you impact the entirety of Homeland Security, to include our brave Secret Service agents. So we have got to get this fully funded. The Border Patrol and ICE have to be fully funded. And Democrats have got to stop their obstruction with this and get it done. It is literally the defense of our homeland at stake here.
I mean, do you have hopes that this will be a catalyst to get that done?
Well, I'm hopeful for that. I think this, reconciliation bill 2.0 here with budget language that's come over from the Senate. We'll be working on that this week, but we've got to fully fund Homeland Security, fully fund CBP, fully fund ICE, and get that done. And that might be through Reconciliation 2.0, which is a budget mechanism and then does not require the full 60 votes in the Senate. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, Matt, that just Democrats understand that not funding Homeland Security has real consequences. It has real consequences right now. It has consequences as we're planning and trying to prepare for America 250, for the Olympics, for FIFA. Those are things we have to start doing now. And if we don't, it has impacts when those events get here.
No, that's well spoken. Matt, final question regarding this subject. It feels as if the Democrats live in a do as we say, not as we do world when it comes to, quote unquote, political rhetoric. I mean, they, on one hand, the same people that 3, 4, 5 days ago were saying that Donald Trump is the worst tyrant in the history of tyrants are now saying, well, there's no place for this type of political violence. And they can't manage to put two and two together, and they can't manage to understand why someone that is slightly unhinged might take some of the things that they're actually saying, broadcast nationwide, worldwide, and use that to fuel their unhinged nature like this individual apparently did. What can we do? I mean, it doesn't feel like much of this comes from the political right. I mean, anytime I hear this type of language out of the political right, the mainstream media, the leftist media, the CNNs of the world, they play it ad nauseum. Any way to put some meat on this bone when it comes to the language that I'm hearing today, which is, oh, yeah, we need to tone down the political rhetoric. It feels like they're going to say that for 4 or 5 days and then go back to their usual anti-Trump language.
Well, and to your point, I mean, you think about the political violence here, from Charlie Kirk's assassination, the attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life, murder of the United Healthcare CEO, the shooting at the Republican baseball practice. You go through all of these, and the political violence and the charged rhetoric is real. I'm thankful that the First Lady is calling on ABC to fire Jimmy Kimmel. I don't watch him. I don't watch that. But I know that he's made light of assassination attempts against the president just right before this latest attempt happened. And she was in the room and unfortunately had to experience that on Saturday night, and it is just completely wrong. And we shouldn't be adding fuel to the fire. And when folks like him even say that, even jokingly, there are folks on the left who take that as real. It gets turned into a 50-character tweet, and it gets sent out, and people see that, and then they're starting to react to it. I mean, one of the most concerning things is this person. This was not a person that was educated. It was a person who was in a good job, getting paid money, and that is for the system to do what it did on this person is real concerning. It's really concerning.
I mean, to that point, and I think you just said it very well, Congressman, but if you read the language that this person left, if you read their background, this was not, as we would classically define it, an unhinged lunatic, right? This was somebody that rationally thought this out and believed themselves to be justified in the actions that they were taking. And one has to extrapolate that part of that justification was the language being used by political figures on the left.
I would totally agree, Matt. I mean, I think you have someone who was very deliberate in this, who had a plan for it, who had was making comments, I think, in his manifesto about what he assessed the security situation to be like. Well, that is deliberate. It's premeditated, and he had a plan to impart a whole lot of violence, and that is scary, and it is being driven by this charged rhetoric, by this other political violence that's happened, and it just has to stop.
Amen. Could not say it better. Congressman, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. Hopefully we can get back to talking policy next time you're on. Hopefully we won't have to talk about this type of thing for the foreseeable future, but I appreciate you popping on with us and giving us your thoughts on it. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Matt.
Yes,
thanks for what you do.
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Absolutely. There's Congressman Matt Van Epps of the 7th District. Good to catch up with Matt and good to hear his perspective. Very late, 28 after the hour. We'll catch up with